All right, chat. I'm waiting on somebody to build a deck for Explorer, but while the Explorer format had been announced, there was an announcement that late summer there was going to be an historic anthologies, and that the historical anthologies were going to be are going to be Explorer cards, and preferably that's going to be the focus. So what I wanted to do was do a wish list, and outside of Historic Anthologies 1 and 2, the rest of the Historic Anthologies have been 25 cards. Historic Anthologies 1 was 20 cards, and Historic Anthologies 2 or 3, I can't remember which one, was 27 cards, and then they added more along the way. So, I planned on doing a... Whoops. Wrong one. A wish list. Alright, and you already saw the first card. So, we'll just get with that. Alright. Eidolon of the Great Rebel. So there's going to be 25 cards, and the majority of them, and there's going to be a couple honorable mentions. Alright. Eidolon of the Great Rebel is going to be the first one. So red in Pioneer. Yeah, well, there's going to be 80 cards roughly that are format playable. However, the first Historic Anthologies is going to only be 25 cards ish, give or take. And I think a majority of them are going to be format staples. So, and I think that some of them might have some historic format playability, but we'll see. But I'm going to go relatively, my list is going to be like 2 of each color card. So 2 red cards, 2 green cards, 2 blue. But these are not going to be in order. It's just going to be like the 25 cards that I put in plus 2 more for historic purposes. Like cards that I actually want. Well, one of them I really want in historic, and the other one it's kind of like, you know, maybe we need it, maybe we don't type of deal. But the first one is Eidolon of the Great Rebel. All you red mages, especially red mages like me that love mono red aggro and mono red midrange and big red and all that, Eidolon is one of those cards that is like a very format staple in those mono red decks. Why? Because Eidolon is whenever a player casts a spell with a converted mana cost of 3 or less, Eidolon of the Great Rebel deals 2 damage to that player. So you play this on 2, and if they kill it, typically it's going to deal them 2 damage. But if they're playing mostly creatures and they're 1 to 3 mana value, it's going to add up to a lot of damage. And you don't care about taking the damage as much because you're killing the creatures or dealing them damage with 3 damage spells and whatnot. But and another card that I'm going to get to here a little bit later, Eidolon is one of those cards that is a format staple in almost every format it's in, Modern, Pioneer, and many others. I believe that it's going to be one of those format staples in Historic as well. So I'm pretty sure that this is going to be one of the cards in. I'm not saying that these 25 cards are going to be in. I'm just saying that this is my wish list, and I believe that this is going to be one of those that are going to be in. Eidolon, look for it. It's going to be a format staple, and I guarantee you that there should be an aggro deck, and mono red is one of those that really needs to be in. That brings me to green Elvish Mystic, and Elvish Mystic, I believe, is going to be one of those cards that are going to be in. It gives mono green mid-range, mono green aggro, and Gruul mid-range and Gruul aggro the other Llanowar Elf type spell that it needs, and this is one of them. So don't be surprised if the Historic Anthologies drops Elvish Mystic, and it'll allow the green decks to sort of compete and have another redundant piece of acceleration in Historic and most notably in Explorer for Pioneer. And it's very good, and I believe it'll be one of those things that I don't personally want it, but I know the green mages will, and it helps with furthering their plan, and Elvish Mystic is a staple. Sylvan Scrying. This one I had a hard time with. I couldn't decide whether or not what other green card, but one of the combo decks that are in the format or in the Pioneer format isn't going to be an Explorer, and Sylvan Scrying sort of fits that bill and sort of get that deck, the staples for it. But I also want this for Historic because I want to be able to search up other lands, and it'll be fine in the Historic format and in the Explorer format as well. Most notably Explorer, to get to that Pioneer. And Sylvan Scrying is one of those where you're able to go search up Lotus Field, which is obviously in the format. So look for this. I hope this is in. I can't wait. And if it is, great. If not, whatever. It's not a big deal. Would rather see Birds or Noble. Well, this is for Explorer specifically. And that's going to be their focus on most of the cards. Yeah, and the majority of... Well, so the majority of the cards, okay, most of them are already programmed or their equivalents are already programmed. So, like, stuff with Hideaway or Threshold or any type of different counters or whatnot, and many other cards that are already in, like Llanowar Elves or Elvish Mystic is easy to implement because we already have Llanowar Elves in the format. So we're on to one of the blue cards, and that's Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice is a very big staple in all of the blue decks, specifically Phoenix and blue-red control in the Pioneer format, which will also be in Explorer. And we really, really need this card. And the reason why I'm adding it is because the majority of the blue cards that are staples in Pioneer probably are busted in the Explorer format, and those are probably be one of the last cards added, that being Dig Through Time and Temporal Trespass and Treasure Cruise. And I think Treasure Cruise is a little bit busted, and while there are no fetch lands in this format, I think the format needs to be have more cards in it than having other cards or having Delve and all that other stuff in already. And Delve and Regenerate and many other mechanics are already in the format, so I'm not really too worried about it. But for Thing in the Ice, for Phoenix specifically in Pioneer, and this also helps Phoenix in Historic as well. So don't be surprised if it's not that bad. Treasure Cruise is not that bad in Pioneer because there are no fetch lands. All right. Thing in the Ice. I can't wait for it. The other blue card that I chose is Mausoleum Wanderer. And this is one of the only other cards in mono blue tempo in Spirits, blue-white Spirits, Banned Spirits that is not in Historic or on Arena. And this card is one of those cards that I really believe will be in the format because this really solidifies the Spirits in the mono blue tempo decks. And it's just good on its own. So I really believe that this is the other blue card that I want, that I could see being in the format that isn't one of the busted blue cards like Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time or any. And it does so much for you. Kalitas is one of my black cards, and Kalitas is one of those. Samwise, how you doing? I want them to make Historic a power format, especially now that we're having a middle-lane format like Pioneer. It's exclamation point Explorer. Appreciate you hanging out, Samwise. Kalitas. 2 black, 2 colorless, lifelink. I also didn't read off Mausoleum Wanderer for the new players, so I'll read it for them. 1 blue, 1/1. It's like that, Samwise. Mausoleum Wanderer, 1 blue, 1/1 flying. When another spirit enters the battlefield under your control, Mausoleum Wanderer gets a +1/+1 until end of turn.
Selena says it smells like laundry that's set in the washing machine too long.
No, it doesn't. What is she talking about?
I don't know. Sorry. Love you.
Wow. And sacrifice Mausoleum Wanderer, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller plays X, where X is Mausoleum Wanderer. Staple in all the blue decks, the blue tempo decks and spirits. All right, Kalitas. 2 black, 2 colorless, legendary creature, vampire, warrior, lifelink 3/4. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile that card and put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, and then pay 1 black, 2 colorless, sacrifice another vampire or zombie, and put 2 +1/+1 counters on Kalitas, Trader of Get. Kalitas is a staple in most mono black aggro, mono black zombies, mono black vampires, black white vampires because of the exile clause, and it's very good on rate, and it can get out of control very quick. But the reason why I want it in here is because mono black aggro is a staple in Pioneer, and mono black decks and black white vampire and vampires specifically are also staples in that format. And Kalitas is one of those cards that probably should be in, and it's very good and not too crazy, not too busted. Doesn't do anything out of the ordinary outside of the exile clause, and it's a good card, and I would love to play with it. One of the other red cards that I added was Shrapnel Blast, and it's 1 red, 1 colorless instant. As an additional cost, sacrifice an artifact. Shrapnel Blast deals 5 damage to target creature or player. This one's a little iffy because it is a little absurd to deal 5 damage for 2 mana, but it is in the format, Pioneer, and the sacrifice deck or the Oniko Anvil decks will probably use this, and it kills 2 birds with 1 stone and allowing a different build path for the artifact deck in Historic. But mostly, it's a good staple for the artifact decks in Pioneer, and it is seeing a lot of play today rather than about a couple weeks ago. And it's mostly fine, but I'm a little skeptical. We'll have to see, but the artifact decks need cards also, so give them Shrapnel Blast. And there's a couple others. Bloodsoaked Champion, 1 black, 2/1, Human Warrior, Bloodsoaked Champion can't block. Raid, 1 black, 1 colorless, return Bloodsoaked Champion from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only if you attack with a creature this turn. This is a staple in all the mono black aggro decks, mostly, obviously, mono black non-zombies. And it's a great 2/1, great attacking creature, great aggressive creature. You don't care about blocking, and if you've attacked, this comes back, typically. So, yeah. Very good card. Wish they had something like this in Historic also. It's just good what it does, and one of the, if not the best, probably in tandem with Knight of the Ebon Legion for best 1-drop ever printed. That's not named Death Shadow. Excuse me. Favored Hoplite. Whenever you cast this, or 1 white, 1/2 creature human soldier, heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Favored Hoplite, put a +1/+1 counter on Favored Hoplite and prevent all damage that would be dealt to it this turn. This is a white card that is for the feather and red blue, the red white aggro decks that are spell based, like Arcanist and many others. So I didn't want to put too many good white cards in here, and this one facilitates an archetype that saw play a lot. Not seeing so much play today because basically when Luris got banned, this deck was basically useless. So, but yeah, I would love to play this deck in Explorer as this and a bunch of white and red 1-drops and Feather and Reckless Rage and many others. And the other white card I wanted to add was Chained to the Rocks. 1 white enchantment aura. Each enchant mountain you control. When Chained to the Rocks enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Chained to the Rocks leaves the battlefield. This card is absurd. And it's one of the cards that probably should be in. And it's an enchantment. Helps the Ignatic Incarnation decks, and it has a white removal spell that's forcing you to play with red cards, and doesn't seem too busted, and it's a catch-all creature removal spell. Saw play back in the day when it was in Standard, and still sees play today. And one of those cards that will facilitate both formats. and it's still good in Pioneer. So Ghost Fireblade. So this is one of the other artifact cards I want in the historic the historic anthologies for the Explorer format. 1 colorless equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Equip 3. Ghost Fireblade equips for 2 less to act, or equip cost ability equip. Oh man, I can't talk. Equip ability cost 2 less to activate if it target a colorless creature. So an artifact, a devoid creature, which are not in any of these, and any other colorless creature. It costs 1 to give it +2/+2. So your Ornithopters, your Steely Champions, or not Steely Champion, Steel Overseer, and all the other artifact creatures to help with the artifact aggro deck. Darksteel Citadel to also help the artifact deck. Darksteel Citadel is just a land, tap to add a colorless, also indestructible. It is also an artifact land. So this facilitates a lot of stuff, and I think this is one of those things that should be on Arena for multiple formats. The other aggressive card that I added as a gold card, there's a few gold cards in here that I added. Boros Charm is 1 red, 1 white instant. Boros Charm, or choose 1. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player, or permanents you control are indestructible this turn, or target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So all red-white aggro decks, burn decks, creature decks, most of them play Boros Charm. It's a staple in Modern. It's a staple in the aggressive decks in Pioneer. This is a staple in one of the charms that should be in, and it facilitates so many aggressive shells because of the 4 damage at instant speed and giving your creatures indestructible if the opponent has Wrath of God effects. And in a pinch, giving a giant creature double strike for those spell-based decks. So can't wait for this to be in, if it's allowed to be in. The other gold card I added was one of the only cards. So I wanted to put a removal spell in here, and I couldn't decide whether or not it was Abrupt Decay or Dreadbore. Really, you could put any of those in there, but Abrupt Decay is the one that I basically used. And Abrupt Decay cannot be countered by spell or abilities. Destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost of 3 or less. It costs 1 black and 1 green. Staple in most formats. Not so much in Modern or Legacy, but sees a lot of play in Pioneer because it can't be countered and it basically destroys anything. Most things, not all things, but very good removal spell for 2 mana. And in those colors that Siege Rhino is in, which is not in this list, unfortunately. Would be in my honorable mentions because Siege Rhino is like one of those iconic cards. It probably will be in just because of how iconic it is and how famous and how popular it is. But I did not add it in this list. So for all you Siege Rhino fans, I'm sorry. This is one of my favorite cards of all time, and that's Bring to Light. And it's 3 colorless, 1 green, 1 blue, sorcery, converge. Search your library for a creature, instant, or sorcery card with converted mana costs less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast Bring to Light. Exile that card, then shuffle your library. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. This allows you to play Niv Mizzet Reborn in any format that it's allowed to be in. It'll also be able to cast your Omnaths. So basically, Niv to Light in Pioneer and also in Modern is allowed to be played, and it's searched up by Niv. So I added this because Bring to Light is one of my favorite cards of all time. I played it a lot online when it was in Standard, and it's near dear to my heart because it's a 5 color. It basically wants you to be 5 colors and facilitate that search and play effect. And yeah, it's very good card. And then there's Voice of Resurgence, 1 green, 1 white, 2/2 elemental. When an opponent casts a spell during your turn, or when Voice of Resurgent dies, create a green-white elemental creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. Another gold color staple in Naya midrange, in green-white aggro if there was a deck, in Niv to Light. many other formats. It's a staple in not really a staple anymore in Modern, but it still sees play there. Very good against control decks, very good against removal-based decks. This is a staple. I can't wait to play with it. Was very, very good in Standard, and also very, very good in Pioneer. Mantis Writer, 1 blue, 1 red, 1 white, human, monk, flying, vigilance, haste, 3/3. For all you human lovers out there, I added Mantis Writer. Mantis Writer is one of those cards that is iconic in its own right, and I just as well I will play with this card. It doesn't matter if it's terrible or not. Yeah, voice also, yeah. And Mantis Writer is one of those cards that I will play. Humans is going to be a deck that I will test out once those cards are added, but Mantis Writer facilitates that. Might also see play in Historic if it shows up, but my more focus is on Explorer, and this is one of the cards that I want to see. Very good card. Can't wait to play with it. One of the last gold cards is Spell Queller. 1 white, 1 blue, 1 colorless, 2/3 spirit, flash flying. When Spell Queller enters the battlefield, exile target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. When Spell Queller leaves the battlefield, the exile card's owner may cast that card without paying its mana cost. This was a staple in Blue-White Flash in Old Standard. It was a staple in Blue-White Flash in Modern, and then it became Spirits, and Spirits is what makes Spirits a deck, especially with Collected Company. Able to cast Collected Company, get a 2-for-1 and counter the spell. Theoretically counter because it doesn't actually counter, it just exiles. Excuse me. And allowing Spirits to stop putting these tempo cards. Hey, look, I think that these cards are allowed to be in, and they should be, because they should have been in a long time ago, and they're not here, and they should be. And Spell Queller is one of them. And the other is Reflector Mage. 1 white, 1 blue, 1 colorless, 2/3 human wizard. When Reflector Mage enters the battlefield, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. That creature's owner can't cast spells with the same name as that creature until the next turn. One of the cards that was actually, is Spirits really that much worse than Rogues? Not really. It's fine in all the formats that it's played in. Reflector Mage was a banned card at one time in Standard, and they have made better cards than Reflector Mage in the most recent sets, like Teferi and Divide by Zero. Not creatures, obviously, but if a card like this can be banned in Standard, then why make them better? But anyway, staple in all human decks in every format that it has humans in it, Modern and Pioneer specifically. And this is one of the best creatures ever printed in gold that's a human, and it will see play in every format that it's allowed to be in, most notably Explorer, Pioneer, and Historic. And I know that people will see this and go, oh my god, why would you add this card? But let's be real, Reflector Mage is an iconic staple, and it will continue to be, and it's a great card. One of my favorites, we're getting to some of the lands. Ergborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Legendary land. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other types. So I wanted another land that allowed you to play mono black, and you can still play other basics, and you can still produce black mana with your utility lands. So Ergborg allows that to happen. I also secretly want this in Historic too, but again, as I said, the majority of the time I'm going to be playing Explorer, because Historic needs a lot more cards for it to be viable, considering that Modern Horizons 1 and 2 cards, namely Unholy Heat and many others that are more powerful than some of the cards that are in there, prefer to this. However, Ergborg, very good card, incentivizes you to play only black lands and black cards, and I am a proponent of mono black. And we're going to play more of that deck in the Explorer when I test more against viewers like you. One of my other favorites in lands, Mana Confluence. I've been clamoring for this card to be on Arena for years now, and I cannot wait for this to be in, and one of my on the list also. Mana Confluence is a land, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. One of my favorites, and Arena needs it. and it facilitates a lot of decks, not just Niv, but many others that need that extra push to splash, and it doesn't really cost you that much, and it allows you to play any kind of deck. And if you're one of those that loves to have multiple lands, this also allows you to have that option. And it's only a rare, not a mythic, so not going to cost that much, even though rare wildcards usually is the bottleneck except mythics. But Mana Confluence is one of those lands that needs to be in the format, and it allows you to play so many decks, and it's on my wish list, and that's why it's here. I have a deeply hate-love relationship with this land. When it was in Standard, it was still playable then, and in Pioneer, it's a staple there too. Other land, Thespian Stage. Another land, adds a colorless, tap 2, tap. Thespian Stage becomes a copy of a target land and gains this ability. Yeah, it's about to be done here in a second. A couple minutes. So Lotus Field decks get one of their staples, and this also allows you to copy any other land, but this is mostly used for Lotus Field. And I think this land should be allowed to have that one combo deck, and the only combo deck that is in there for the moment is the Lotus Field. And we're trying to get, in my list, I'm trying to get that deck in here. I don't like the deck, but it should be allowed. Combo decks should be allowed in formats. Shouldn't be the best, but they should be allowed to be competitive, and this is one way to do that. Would it be all right if Surek Huntmaster got added in this initial dump? I wouldn't be upset about it. It'd be fine. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. Legendary land, 1 colorless, or add 1 colorless. Tap 2, tap, choose a color. Add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. Mono green and mono black and many other monocolor decks are allowed to have the burst, and Nykthos fills that bill for Pioneer for mono green and mono black. And Nykthos was one of those cards that I wasn't sure if I wanted to add it, but I said, whatever, we'll put it on the wish list and I'll put it on there. And I'm excited to be able to play this. What's the win con in Pioneer Lotus Field? They use Emergent Ultimatum, and they go get Peer to the Abyss, and they copy it and some other stuff. But Nykthos allows you to play mono green, mono black, and many other devotion-based decks, and this gives that archetype the teeth that it allows to get that burst. And would be fun to play with in Historic too, if we ever go back to that. And then aggro, your land, you get your Mutavault. I figured if we're given control, mid-range, combo, all their stuff, aggro, you get yours too, and that's Mutavault. Land, tap, add a colorless. 1, Mutavault becomes a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn. It's a land. Mutavault is a staple in every aggro deck, especially tribals. So humans will play it, merfolk will play it, zombies will play it, wizards will play it. Every staple or every tribal will play this, and even some colorless stuff, artifacts also. So this gives the this will give tribal and aggro decks another tool of it being a land and very hard to interact with, which is what those formats are about. And it's a staple in most of those decks, and I am putting it on the wish list because I like it. So we're getting into the honorable mentions, and Flagstones is a card that is not in Explorer. It is not in Pioneer. However, this is the land that I want in Historic. And the reason why is because there are a lot of good decks in Historic. However, there is not a land or there are not very many utility lands, and Flagstones is one of those lands that isn't too powerful and isn't one of those things that enables some ridiculous combo. But what Flagstones does enable is Elvish Reclaimer, Cleansing Wildfire, and all these less played creatures and spells that give the value decks or the mid-range decks something to play with. And Flagstones is one of those cards that I really wanted to have in Historic in the drop. Even if it's not good, you get to have that archetype that allows you to play that land and have some utility lands. And then the other is an Explorer or Pioneer card, but it's an addition, and that's Satyr Wayfinder. Satyr Wayfinder is one green, one colorless, Satyr 1/1. When Satyr Wayfinder enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among those into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. This is just allowing the graveyard deck some utility and some flexibility in that it's a creature that gets the sacrifice fodder while also filtering and allowing to fill your graveyard. And it allows you to play those types of decks, Reanimator and many others, and filling your graveyard. And this is one of those that's a very big staple in those, while also having an honorable mention for having it for Historic. So that's the wish list. A little bit longer than I wanted to go, but got through all of them. 25 cards plus 2. And you can finagle with them. Let me know in the comments below what you believe should be in the wish list or what should be in Historic Anthologies 2 in the comment section. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The other socials are in the description below with my stream and many other socials. And we stream on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and sometimes on the weekends. And I look forward to seeing you there. And we'll see you in the next video.